The main purpose of this video, I wanted to ask you guys how you like life here in Panama. You guys are businessmen. We've had really great conversations today, so I wanted to talk about like the business opportunity as well. First question is like, why did you guys decide to come to Panama?
I think the reasons between Rashid and I might be a bit different. I was living in Barbados and I always had the option to go to Canada and move there. But given how both places handled COVID, I wanted somewhere that I felt a bit more secure than either Canada or Barbados. So after some long thought and some back and forth with Rashid and other people, I decided on Panama. I had the right mix of things that I was looking for.
Interesting. So you guys didn't arrive here because of the business was here. You guys actually picked moving to Panama.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess a similar thing, except so I also do some stuff in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So when you want to go somewhere else, want to go somewhere where you can get to DC pretty quickly.
Okay.
So it has to have good airport connections. Very boring reason, but it's a reason.
Right.
And then wanted somewhere that is actually still a bit more stable, because Latin America it's not the most stable place.
That's 100% true. And with all the socialism that's spreading through right now,
Correct.
it's an issue.
So all of those things, plus I want to be a new place, not somewhere kind of have some familiarity with, but to explore, learn in that new environment as well. So kind of, went down the list on all the places I could possibly go, Mexico, Brazil, Vietnam,
right?
Philippines, China. Actually, I was dead set on going to China. Actually,
oh yeah, really?
Yeah, I speak Chinese. And
you do?
Yeah.
Shout out, you know it.
Yeah, it's been like 3 years. It's doing Chinese learning for quite intensely. I do a lot of work with Chinese topics.
I see.
For the other stuff I do.
Yeah, he has a very famous podcast in foreign policy circles.
And you do it in Chinese?
Not in Chinese, but a lot of it's all Chinese related. To essentially bounce back between two topics.
Wow.
And then also stuff I do in Washington D.C. that I mentioned is China centric, China foreign policy in America, Latin America, Caribbean.
Wow.
So it's a natural fit to learn Chinese. And I also lived in Asia at the time.
Right.
So it came together.
Mandarin.
Mandarin.
Did you speak a little Canto as well or no?
None.
Yeah.
0.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I didn't know your Mandarin is probably better than mine. I studied it for 8 years because my parents forced me. But now I don't know if you guys speak a second or third language, but they mix. So I'll try to speak Mandarin, but Spanish just comes to my head immediately.
Oh, I see.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, happens all the time. Not now as much, but it's funny. If you remember, we go to Montreal sometimes, and I would attempt to speak French. But other things come out, and I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Sometimes I try to speak Spanish, and French comes out.
You guys speak French?
A little bit.
Okay, is that common in Barbados?
No,
we
not
tend to
Barbados.
learn. Well, it's not common to speak it, but it's
in
common
school,
to learn at least a
7
couple
years.
of languages.
It is 7 years of French in Barbados.
Yeah,
Wow.
I did 4 or 5 years of French and Spanish.
Is it good enough that you can would you say fluent or?
No, not nearly, but we can read and get by as well as we need to in a foreign country.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So anyway, that's why I did all that stuff, and I used to come to Panama. Although I've never been to Panama before.
Right.
Just come on a whim, and then I was like, oh, this is very nice.
Yeah. No, it was really surprising to me as well because when I first got here, there's a lot of things surprising about Panama. First, how developed it is. Like you see the skyline, I thought I was like, am I in Dubai? Like what? Right? With all the super tall buildings, how safe it is here, and how much commerce there is here. And then the fourth thing is how many Chinese people there are here, bro.
Yeah.
There are so many Chinese people here.
It's 5% of the population.
Right.
It's quite a lot.
And I love that it's a custom here where the people on Sundays will go to dim sum places.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I went yesterday and it was all white and Latin people and there were no Asian customers there. It's crazy.
Almost every week, I'm just Rashi, let's go dim sum on Sunday.
That's all. So when you found Panama, did someone recommend it to you guys or did you guys find it online?
I came to Panama before in 2018.
Okay.
And I didn't spend more than a week here, but I was also pleasantly surprised by Panama at the time.
Interesting.
So it was always on my radar, always a place that I wanted to come back to and check out properly.
Yeah.
Like we got into earlier in the previous question, we both had our own reasons for wanting to leave Barbados. Canada was always an option for me, but it became less of an option during COVID.
Yeah.
And for the same reasons and some of the same things that Rashid prioritized in his search, I was also prioritizing in mine. And Panama kept coming up at the top of the list.
Yeah. When you guys picked, is it important that you guys live in the same area?
It's actually probably Better if we did not. For like some work reasons.
Yeah.
Maybe different areas would be a lot more easy. But it just happens to come. I came here first, then was just raving about Panama all the time. Andre was still in Barbados at the time. Like he came like 3 months later, July, August, and that. And then he just came. He would come for like a week. And he ended up staying.
Yeah, it's funny how that happened.
Is this place rented or no? Did you bought this place?
This place I bought.
Oh, okay.
Funny enough, Andre saw this place online in Barbados before he ever came to Panama. They was like, hey, Rashid, go to check this building for me to see if it's actually nice.
I chose this place even before he got here.
Wow.
And he actually ended up buying it.
Yep.
So it worked out.
Was it an easy process?
No. It took a year. It took a year. Depending on how you're set up, what you have by way of banking overseas and that sort of thing, a good accountant, etc.
Yeah, that's right.
It may be more or less easy.
Did you buy
in general, it's difficult to, as someone who's not Panamanian, to access the real estate market in Panama while still getting credit from the banks here. That sort of thing.
Okay, so you had to pay it with cash.
I got credit from the banks here.
Oh, you did?
I was very fortunate to be able to negotiate a mortgage with the banks.
Wow.
It is not very common.
Okay. Yeah, so that because what I've heard talking to people, most of the people that buy properties here, they do it in cash.
That's right.
And a lot of the market lately have been Colombians, Peruvians, a lot of people from Latin America paying with cash and coming.
But as you can imagine, that presents its own problems, right? Even though you're paying with cash, it still is not very easy, right? Because the banking system here is very strict, very compliant. Right. Remember, it's U.S. dollar banking in Panama through and through. So they have U.S. correspondent banks that are allowing them to receive international transfers and send international transfers in U.S. dollars.
So but your mortgage is with a bank from here.
It's with a bank from here.
Are you allowed to get a mortgage from the U.S. and buy a property here or no?
That would be, I think, a bit more difficult to sell.
A lot
to the
more
bank.
complicated.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
When you buy your property, was it an easy process too, or did you pay all in cash, or how'd you do it?
Luckily, I have a significant other who's Panamanian, so just going that route.
Yeah. That's what I did too. I put my business in my wife's name. If we buy a property, it's gonna be in my wife's name. So
yeah, it's a lot easier that way, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to establish here, that I was looking to establish in Canada, is a good base of and history of credit.
Okay.
To do most things that, if you want to get into real estate and own a lot of property, unless you're loaded already,
right,
you're going to need credit from the bank. So establishing a credit history is very important.
Okay.
So I was looking for a place where I would even want to get involved in the real estate market.
Okay.
And looking for a place that had an accessible banking system that I could establish.
And the fact that it's so close to the U.S., you think that has helped Panama a lot? Or you don't really, it's not that big of a deal?
It's different. So Panama's linked to the U.S. as like a international banking hub in USD. A lot of the regulations and regulatory power or regulatory supervision that the offices have here in Panama, they take a lot of direction. Not like, hey, do this, but actually try to follow the rules in international standards. Whereas other countries are a bit more loose. So the ironic thing is that you assume that Panamanian banks are looser than other places, but it's the opposite. It's a lot more difficult.
Would you say that like here is kind of like Switzerland is for Europe, Panama is for the Americas?
That's a very simple.
That's pretty accurate. Probably a similar amount of density in terms of banks per square meter, especially in this area.
There might be actually more here, perhaps. Like there are like 90-some banks in Panama, down from a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
100 and low number before the Panama Papers or so that.
Yeah.
There's some left after that. It's very small ones.
You can look out this window and just
everywhere
10 banks without even
Tower
trying.
Bank here, Madison here.
This view is crazy, by the way. This view is amazing.
Yeah.
So what are the biggest reasons that keep you guys here in Panama?
That keep me here. The big reason for me, though, that would keep me here in the future is some of these considerations about, I can store my money in USD. I have a view on where the US dollar is going to go versus some of these other currencies. It's very important for me to be able to store my money and save my money in USD here. That's an economic reason. There are other reasons around security. Panama City is incredibly secure.
So safe, man.
Yeah.
Oh my
and,
God,
and
yeah.
for me, I can understand a bit of Spanish, but certainly not enough to feel pretty anchored and settled in the place. But even without that, I feel very safe here. I feel like I can get to what I need to get to without any issue. No one's going to bother me. I can walk on these streets at 3 a.m. in the morning when I'm coming home from work.
That's right.
Wow.
And I don't bat an eye.
Yeah. Is that how you feel as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Extremely safe, very clean. Very boring thing. It's safe, it's clean, it's actually a lot more green than you would expect.
Yeah, politically stable. That's
Very
important.
stable.
She was in Peru the other day.
Yeah, I was I was in Peru the day of the coup.
So the day before, he's sending me all these messages.
Yeah.
Like, look at this. These streets are so clean.
Yeah, it's so nice.
An hour later, he's like, "Oh my goodness, this is the best food in Latin America at this restaurant." That I went to."
My town one, yeah.
He's like, "Oh yeah, I could really live here." 24 hours later, so apparently there's a coup.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'll be able to get out. I guess it isn't that good a place to live.
Yeah, so that happened. As I was telling real time, it was a very nice area.
Meanwhile, in Panama, we've had some pretty crazy protests.
Yeah, it had some riots. Not riots, like protests.
Protests, and even though they were like some of the worst protests that they've had in years. We look outside and we see the protests. Oh, people are protesting.
Yeah,
there's
right.
no buildings burning. There's no chaos.
There's not a lot of graffiti.
You only know them. That's true.
Here,
yes,
in the poor areas, there's a ton. In this area, it's very clean.
Nice. Yeah. But yeah, we protest. Sometimes I will be on the street going somewhere, driving in an Uber. I was sending a video to Andre saying, "Here's the protest. Like, got protests. Where are the You can't really see the protest.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more stable.
People are protesting. I didn't know.
It's a lot more stable here in Panama.
Absolutely.
And what else? You were telling me about like the restaurants. You like the amenities here.
The concentration of very high quality food in Panama.
I could not have predicted that.
Me neither. Yeah.
No one would think that.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very high quality food. Very small area. I mean, this area is pretty small, but even the other side of the city, it's still quite small.
I came here at 200 pounds.
So good.
200 pounds in November last year.
Yeah,
by February, I was at like 240.
Yeah, but there's something about the food here.
November 2021, that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how, a year or how? No.
Yeah, so I came here in November 2021. By February 2022, I was 240 pounds.
Oh my God, bro.
Anyway.
That's right.
But here's a problem, right? Because I've noticed like here in Panama, the people are very obese. I'm not gonna lie. It reminds me a lot of the U.S. in that regard. I've heard it's because the food is really fried and the lifestyle. You don't walk a lot. It's very comfortable, Which I mean, it's probably good for like retirees, right?
But retirees don't live here; they live in the other areas. They live in the more mountain areas, so it's much more cool temperature. It's not humid.
I see.
Way more green. And there are no tall buildings really outside this area. But the food, it might sound bad, but it's not. I don't mean in a bad way. The food we eat isn't Panamanian food. It's food in Panama.
That's true. But it's so available.
It's
so even like the very dim sum.
Yeah.
That was a pleasant surprise for me. One of my favorite things about particular neighborhoods in Canada, Ontario, Canada, is I have a lot of Asian friends in Canada.
Yeah.
And every Sunday, we go out and have dim sum with the family.
Yeah.
And it's great. I love that.
Yeah.
I love Mississauga in Canada and Oakville, some really good dim sum places.
Nice.
And those two towns.
And I love that you guys the cool thing that I love about Panama is how open it is to like outside cultures.
Absolutely.
And how integrated Chinese as a Chinese guy, I appreciate this a lot more. Chinese culture is so integrated into this society.
You would pass for Panamanian. We would pass for Panamanian.
We're
all Panamanian.
Yeah,
right?
literally.
We're all Panamanian. And that tells you about the place, right?
Yes,
because
exactly.
of the canal project from many years ago,
right?
A lot of people from a lot of different places came here. There's hardly another Latin American country, maybe Brazil to a lesser extent for us.
Right.
For us.
And maybe if you were Japanese, Brazil, you wouldn't, it wouldn't be too strange, but there's hardly another Latin American country where we would pass for locals.
Yeah, all three of us, which is fucking hilarious, bro. That's so funny. So yesterday I got taken out by Chinese girl and a Nicaraguan guy. They work together. The girl, she owns like a Chinese store. Most of the Chinese people here own businesses, right? And we were passing through. She had a really nice car we were driving, and there was like a police stop. And she was saying that you have your passport, don't show it Just the fact that you're Chinese and you speak Spanish, they're gonna assume you're Panamanian. They're gonna assume you have money, and they're not gonna give you any problems.
Okay.
So just the fact that I'm Chinese, you actually, I'm actually like a higher class citizen here. I don't know if you guys have seen that, because they always assume that the Chinese people have money.
Yeah.
And it's such a different experience for me. And another question I want to ask you guys about racism, right, is that in Colombia, where I live, people stare at me. They're not offensive at all, but it's just like, I've never seen a Chinese guy before.
Yeah. Sure.
They have all these stereotypes that are usually good, that we're smart, we're responsible, not that we have money, but usually smart and responsible and disciplined, right? Whereas here, there's like almost like the opposite from the US, where we're like, they see us really like feminine. Here, they see Asians as like higher than them, which is really fascinating. And I don't know if you guys, what do you guys feel about the racism here, or?
For me, it's practically non-existent. Why? Because I think Panama and a few other places, but especially here, it runs more based on, class than it does on race.
Yes.
Right? You see a lot of some people like us. We were at a showing the other
Fendi,
day in
Fendi.
Santa Maria. Santa Maria is probably the richest neighborhood in Panama. Right? Very. Some of the wealthiest in Panama City live in Santa Maria. I mean, you go there and it looks completely different to this.
Really?
It feels like you're walking around on a golf course. Right?
It is a golf course.
Manicured lawns.
Like a little ponds and stuff, a little stream.
Yeah, I swear, people walking their dogs, and the dogs are doing their business on the floor, and a robot or some person jumps out of the bushes.
It's the kind of area where they have an internal bus system for staff.
Yeah.
Wow.
They have their own garbage collection as well.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah, private company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys were there.
We were there. Just paint a picture, what it would cost to live there.
Most places are around 800,000 US.
Okay.
Basic. Oh, it's not basic. It's still very high end. Yeah. But a lot of the houses are like 1.3, 1.5 million, and then for the high rises, further up, it's like 2 million or so for a place.
Wow.
In Panama City.
And then there's some maintenance.
Then the maintenance fees.
Joining the golf club.
Crazy high too.
And he was telling me about his gym, right? And how he was explaining to me the lab and how they have all this fancy stuff. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Most of his gym members are from Santa Maria.
Exactly.
Yeah, most of them.
And I was talking to him. I was like, how much does it cost? He's like $1,600 a month, and I'm like, what the f? But he was explaining to me the kind of people that go there, and that's what you're paying for, the network, and who are the people that you meet. And I get that,
you could make a business decision to go live in Santa Maria just because of the network.
Exactly.
Access to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So we were at a viewing for one of these new projects, a Fendi building in Santa Maria. Fantastic building. Units are probably starting at around 1.1, and then going all the way up to 2 million plus.
Okay.
And the people that were there, I think there were maybe 40 people at the peak before we left. And you saw, white people. You saw many foreigners were there as well. We saw a number of Caribbean people. We thought, and we're used to this. We're used to being the only black people in certain circles.
No.
But there were at least like 8 black people.
Yeah, they were like 10.
Wow.
A good proportion of you can always tell where some Caribbean black person.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know why, but you can
yeah.
always tell that. And so this guy one of the guys we spoke to was like a Jamaican-born guy living in Atlanta for a bit, has a Panamanian wife. So it's like you can always tell somehow they're Caribbean people,
right?
But it's a surprisingly high number.
That's right.
Wow,
so it's less about race here and more about money.
Class.
I'm sure there is some implicit or inherent racism.
Yes.
There's always going to be some baseline racial biases wherever you go. You can't get away from it because much like you mentioned, they'll look at you and assume certain things about you because you're Chinese.
Yes.
Because they're conditioned to see Chinese people in certain positions, owning restaurants,
really
and
nice
so
cars.
Exactly.
Yes.
In El Dorado, and so on and so forth.
Malls.
They're conditioned.
Yes.
Right, and that's where a lot of initial racial biases come from. Yeah.
And so the class thing, because something that I've noticed just walking around, I stayed in like hostels. I've gone to like the centro area and like to see where the poor people live. And now I'm staying in a building where there's a lot of rich people. What I've noticed is that a lot of the working class is dark, And as you go to the higher buildings, they are lighter skinned. But I don't think they're natively from Panama. It seems to me that they're mostly immigrants.
That's right.
So the building I live in now, all I've seen is like some darker skinned people, a lot of lighter skinned people, and a lot of Chinese people. That seems to be the big three.
Yeah.
It's a mix. One other thing, depends on who you say it might be a weird thing. There's a lot of Jewish people.
Yes, I've heard that as well.
So it's actually a lot. It's a surprisingly high number for Panama, for a country like Panama.
Yes.
But it's so high, for example, that there are some, like during Christmas time for us, on one of the major roads here, have a big menorah. Just like lit up. Because it's so many people like that, Jewish people here. Yeah. So it's a huge mix of that. Sometimes you will see them, you will see they're foreigners, but just like local Panamanians.
That's right.
They're often very white.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So there's this joke. One of our friends, sometimes they look at her, and she's Panamanian.
Okay.
And some Panamanians might look at her and say, "Oh, you don't look Panamanian," because maybe because of her hair color. Maybe if you're white with dark hair, they might think you're Colombian.
Yeah.
Lighter skinned with dark hair, you might pass for Colombian, and if you're blonde, you might pass for Argentinian, and so on and so forth. But really, there's no one particular way that a Panamanian looks.
Which is now what I'm
about, like indigenous people or something.
Yeah, and the working class, right? Yeah. What do you think of the women here, and what do you think of the men here?
That's a good question. I don't think I'll have an accurate perspective on that because I've mainly dated women in the city, and I haven't dated a wider. I hope I don't have to, but I endeavor to someday.
Yeah. You said your type was Chinese,
so
or
cultural,
Asian, which
cultural
is great.
experience, more cultural experiences of that sort. But in any case, I feel good about the women here.
Yeah.
It's always a good sign when you go to the malls, for example, and you see families holding hands and little kids running around. You're in the thick of the city.
It's the same in Colombia.
You go to Toronto, for example. It's completely different. You don't see much of that.
So different.
Downtown Toronto, the malls.
You barely see a baby stroller.
Exactly.
Really?
Exactly.
In Toronto, you barely see it.
So even though this is a city, and cities tend to not be as family oriented as maybe the suburbs are, I still think this place is very, very anchored in family.
Especially in coastal, let's say town center, for example.
Exactly.
You go to town center on a Sunday evening, and you can see the population pyramid just full out there. You can understand. I live in a very healthy demographic society. So many children just about the place running around and so on.
Yeah,
it's very different.
Yesterday I went to Amador Causeway. Right?
Yeah.
And we went to the park area. My friends took me, and it was all families. People playing soccer, kind of hanging around, jumping rope, balloons and stuff. And I'm like, this is Latin America. This is what I love.
I like that.
Yeah, and it's crazy because how it looks. It's like Newport Beach in California, right? Super expensive restaurants, these really nice malls. And you go to a park and it's filled with a bunch of Latin, Panamanians just hanging out with their family.
That's right.
And I think that's an interesting charm about Panama that I've really seen, because I know what you guys are saying with the families and everything, and the fact that it's so safe, especially in where there's so much money and there's so many foreigners present, is way different than Colombia. And I think that's a really big draw too.
Absolutely.
So what do you think of the men here? You're dating a Panamanian.
So the Panamanian, I guess my boyfriend is really good.
Yeah.
I don't have any complaints at all, really, material complaints. If you're looking for more let's say dating scene in Panama, I actually don't know. I actually found him very early on in Panama.
Okay.
Maybe 2 months in. So I didn't actually date much in Panama. So that's kind of ironically enough. But I know that, for example, even looks, that kind of thing, a lot of the men here in the city are often Colombian.
The men?
Yeah.
Oh, the gay men.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
You see about the place and so on. But I actually don't really have that much to say about dating, because I dated very little in Panama. I was lucky in that sense. So kind of escaped that.
I think that says something about
Panama.
Suppose
or
your Tinder profile.
So either one of those things, yeah. But it seems that people are a lot more family oriented, at least a lot more earlier family oriented.
It's a Latin thing.
Than one would expect.
Yeah, which is cool that they were able to retain that still here in Panama, right?
Absolutely.
So you see all these big buildings, but it's still Latin America.
Yeah, literally. And this is why it's so interesting to me, because when I came here, it feels like Las Vegas. I don't know if you guys been to Vegas.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's like you have like the strip area, and then you have a bunch of people who live in the suburbs.
They have suburbs, yeah.
Yeah, you have suburbs all around, right? Yeah. But just like walking into the mall, you'll have all these brands that I know from Colombia. The Bankissimo is literally Bank Colombia with a different name. It's the same logo. Yeah. And then it'll be right next to like Krispy Kreme. Yes. Cinnabon, right? Like all these American brands. Do you think that Panama's a really good place to raise a family, or do you think it's a good place to retire? You think it's a good place for young people to live? What would be the
I would say yes to all those questions, and I haven't raised a family here, but I know people who have.
Okay.
And access to good schools, international schools, if you want.
A lot of really good international schools here in Panama, like very good.
Wow, interesting.
And if you want to get out of the chaos of the city, because I've had some friends come here with their large families already, and they stayed here in Avenida Balboa, and they're like, wow, I can't with this place. The traffic is right outside and it feels busy. If you want to get out of the chaos of the city, you can just hop on over to Costa del Este or Santa Maria.
That's where you live, Costa del Este, right?
It's much more tranquil, much more calm, and much better for raising a family. That said, I don't even think the city is bad for raising a family. Right?
Yeah,
lots of green spaces, lots of parks, lots of walking areas.
Surprisingly, public transportation is very efficient and really good here as well.
That's right, absolutely.
Yeah. Uber is quite nice there as well.
Oh yeah,
Uber
is surprisingly cheap. I'm used to Canadian prices. My goodness, it was a breath of fresh air coming here and not having to pay $20 for an Uber just down the street.
Really? Is that expensive?
Oh yeah, Toronto. Oh my God, Uber bill Toronto is crazy.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you pay $65 to go somewhere.
Really?
Oh yeah.
It's funny because like for me, I see the Ubers here. You're right, they're not that expensive. But what I pay in Colombia,
compared to Colombia, compared to Colombia, it's more expensive. Yes.
So I've noticed that there's quite a bit of foreigner shit, like Colombians and stuff like that. But I've heard that they're mostly like prostitutes or like the working class, right? Have you guys met some like Colombians or Peruvians or those kind of people in the higher class?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. A lot of the managerial class, a lot of like company owners here, a lot of the own a lot of property here are many Colombian, many Venezuelan.
That's right.
Actually, one of our favorite restaurants is like probably top. I consider the best in the country is owned by Venezuelan, and you have a lot of like Colombians that run like banks here in Panama, for example. So it's a huge mix. It's all the.
And of course, you're going to get more working class people coming.
There's just a higher number of
the proportion of working class people to
higher class.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and there's more opportunity here for like a lot of these. For example, instead of working class, I mean, which working you're talking about, of course, but a lot of like waiters and so on are typically Colombian Venezuelan. But a lot of the bank managers are also Colombian Venezuelan.
That's right.
Just that people just don't, unless you work in that kind of area, you don't interact as much either. Because there are not that many Panamanians. There's so many banks, so you'll think, right, it's also going to be kind of foreign management as well.
Yeah. Do you think that the foreigner presence is going to ruin Panama, or you think it's like
it's always been a foreigner presence?
That's right.
The canal zone by default is a foreigner presence.
There's never not been at least since
modern Panama.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I see.
It's never not been a foreigner presence in Panama City.
Yeah, that's a really big issue in Medellin right now, because Colombia has their culture and everything. They're letting foreigners in. But Medellin, I hate it. I think it's kind of destroying the culture because it's all about drugs, sex tourism, and like not easy money, but a lot of the expats that I met there, it's because it's so cheap to live there. You get entrepreneurs, but they're not like extremely successful, or it's not like here, because if you have money in Panama, you have money, whereas in Colombia, if you have $50, you have money. So, and that's a really big difference.
I think one of the issues is that because Panama has this like two central industries: canal, shipping, logistics, and then banking, finance, that kind of thing. The attraction is obviously kind of tailored those kind of industries. Whereas like if you go to a small town in Colombia, it's no particular thing you are attracted to, it's just the town itself.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of reason for migrating. But even in Panama, you have a lot of people just come here because of Latin America. They don't stay long because they kind of don't see it so expensive before you come. Then you come it's actually very expensive.
It's hella expensive.
But that said, if you're a remote worker in Canada or the States, you're making, let's say you're in software, a program or something, you're making $5,000 US a month, let's say. You can
Oh, you
live
can
a
live
very good
those
life in
people
Panama.
I think you were saying earlier, Panama's such a hidden gem in many ways. Those people still go to Mexico, they go to Brazil, they go to Colombia. They don't really think
about Panama. I didn't think about Panama. Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
It is a hidden gem.
100%.
I think it's worth emphasizing that here in the city, this is very much a bubble. This is one view of Panama. And the thing that I am most excited about in terms of staying in Panama is learning more about the culture, learning more about the different places. It's a beautiful, and Panamanians, many of them do take pride in their culture. You've got to come here during Independence season. It is the wildest thing. You see that street over there, Calle 50?
Yeah.
It is full of parade from 7 o'clock in the morning until
marching
7 o'clock
band,
at night.
dancer.
Marching band for days.
Folk dancer, like 3 days or so.
They have I don't know if they have this in Colombia, but there's a big Christmas parade as well. For Christmas on Avenida Balboa. And it's a day-long parade. Bands are big here. We plan to join a band. This year for Independence Day because they're independent bands.
Like musical bands, church bands, or school bands.
Bands. So we can actually participate in the independence celebration.
That's amazing. I love that how it seems that they've embraced foreign influence without getting rid of their home culture.
They really do embrace their culture. They take so much pride.
But that's like any kind of like Caribbean culture, really, right? Because we grew up in Caribbean. So Caribbean culture is by definition it's a dynamic inward outward attitude.
But seeing it amplified to this extent, seeing it celebrated
it's more
to this
people
extent.
Yes.
In Canada, it is nothing like this in Canada.
In the U.S., it's not like this at all.
But even, for example, look at the Caribbean high-dense parts of Toronto or even of London, you still get the same thing.
Sure.
Yes, because the entire thing isn't going to be the case, but here in Panama City, even in Cologne, you get similar type things because that's kind of that kind of Caribbean culture retained.
Yeah, I've heard that. Like Cologne, I've heard David is another city here as well. David, right?
David is curious because, again, as Andre said, this city is this city. This does not exist anywhere outside the city.
That's right.
So David's when I go to David's, I'm going to Spice Town Barbados. It's a very obscure reference.
Okay.
But it's very small. There's no big brands, for example. Very small, very calm. But then the thing with David, when people go there, is that it goes to Boquete or it goes to Balkan.
Okay.
You mentioned retirement earlier. Lots of people from North America in particular retire here in Panama, but not here in the city. They all go to Chiriquí, the other province, for like Boquete and so on.
Dang, so I need to go check those out.
The weather is crisp.
It is perfection.
Oh, yes.
Perfection.
It was like 16 to 20 degrees all day, every
18,
day.
19.
Yeah.
And obviously prices there are way less than here. So you get a
It
large
is
house.
beautiful.
Yeah, large house. Beautiful. Yeah, on the rolling hills with the view, you get a house for like, I don't know. Maybe it's like 300,000, 200,000. As it go down, less.
Right.
Where for here, you could not get a nice place for that kind of price.
And over there, still reasonably good access to amenities and so on.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it's only like 40 minutes by plane from here.
Okay.
It's a small country still.
Yeah.
Obviously, best coffee in the world is obviously there.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Here in Panama or in Colombia?
So, we're here in Panama.
It's hella strong, bro. It's hella strong.
We need to educate.
Yeah.
See, it depends, right?
You took your stuff back. We can't.
I took it already.
Oh, shoot.
So, the geisha coffee in
here.
particular, the strain of coffee called geisha, originally was from Colombia, but was perfected in Panama. So the actual most expensive geisha sold in the world is grown here in Panama.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
It's like $60 a cup, something like crazy right there.
No, it depends on where you are. So if you're in Dubai, like the roasters from the beans here, when they sent to Dubai for roasting, some of them sell for like $60 a cup. However, some of the similar beans, same plot, right, go to China and Taiwan and they sell for 500 a cup. Yes.
Wow.
And then here we get the same thing again, not the exact same portion of the farm, but close enough for $10. And LA also the $20 that's for the same bean. Okay. So it's quite a lot.
When we go on business trips to Canada, we carry some of these really expensive beans.
And you impress the people when
they love it.
Absolutely.
They love it.
Yeah. They mail us months later, wow, can we get some more of that on your next trip?
Wow.
It's the best coffee we ever had.
Yeah, they say that.
So I need to get some before I leave.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I have one last question. How's the healthcare here?
My experience of it is quite good.
Yeah.
It's very good. I mean oversell. It's very good. However, and this is a fair point to make, yes, private healthcare is very good.
Yes.
I can't say for public healthcare. I've never been to it.
Is it expensive?
Relative to what? To US? No, of course not. It's cheaper here.
For us, quite reasonable.
How much you guys
private
pay
healthcare.
for your insurance plans monthly?
That's a good question.
So a lot of it can be paid in cash because the price is that high. So for example, let's say we do like a checkup or a blood work, and they have like home doctors where they can bring the doctor come to your house for a visit. He'd come take the blood here even, check you even. That's like what, $70?
Yeah, $60, $70.
You know, speaks English fluently and all kinds of that.
Wow,
Very good service.
Yeah, so it's about half the price of US, I would say.
Yeah, so it has price. And then if you go to a clinic here, of course, depending on the prices, it would be. I don't know the actual prices, unfortunately.
Yeah, I
don't know off the top of my head, but it's very good.
Okay, cool.
We are recording the video.
See.
We are recording the video.
That's good. Yeah, it's